My name is David Liuzzo. I am the Executive Director at Arden Courts of Sarasota. Currently, I'm in my 5th year of employment here. It's really gratifying to work in this business. It's presented a whole new meaning of my life, and I can go into further detail on that. But I had worked previously for a local hospital, and I was on the road. I was a sales rep, basically soliciting doctors from the Sarasota area all the way down to Fort Myers. I was working on trying to collect lab specimens from various dermatology doctors to bring back to our local hospital so they can do the research on those lab studies. Did that for about 6 years, 250 miles per day. Got a little bit old. So I decided I wanted to get off the road. I've got a business management degree, so my background was always human resources personnel at the time. The last time I worked the role. So I saw an ad in the paper and on the computer for an HR person and business management position at Arden Courts in Sarasota. Applied for the role, had some great interviews with some really good people, and the next thing you know, I was their new HR and business person. So I was in that role for about 4 or 5 months, and I was approached by management that they weren't really happy with the current administration and they wanted to make a move. They offered me the position of executive director, and we weren't in a great spot, I guess, at the time. We have a building that can hold 56 residents. There was only 18 people in the building at the time. It was a time during COVID, so our entire operation was basically being completed with agency personnel. I think I only had 4 or 5 rostered employees at the time. I have a couple of stories that I want to share. It's, it still brings a tear to my eye up until this day, but they kind of happened early on when we were really trying to recreate this building. From what I understand, it really struggled for a good amount of years. Some of my favorite things about working at Arden Courts on a day-to-day, I mean, I'm a big people person. Relationships are very important to me. I like to come in and I like to talk, of course, with our residents first and foremost, but meeting the families of these people who are going through these very difficult times, just having conversations with them, letting them know that we're all here for them. Again, that's very gratifying to me. And the team, I love our working team. I'll take our team and I'll put them against anybody in healthcare that does the same type of job. It gets me out of bed every day, and it continues. There's so many challenges throughout the course of our day in and day out. No 2 days are the same. But without the team, without the relationship building, we probably would have nothing. And obviously without our families who give us the opportunity, we would not have a job, if you can even call this a job. So a little story, when I first was appointed executive director, a former vice president of operations came in our building, and it had been performing a little lackluster over the previous years. And when he came in here and he walked around, he brought me into an office and he said, Dave, I really noticed something different. The culture is changing in your community. He said, I feel it with my first walk out there. He said, it's something I haven't had in quite some time in this building. So with the push from him, our regional director of operations, who's been, a big supporter of mine, he's my supervisor, we just kept pushing and pushing. And, along the way, we've been able to eliminate agency. We haven't had agency personnel in our building since 2023. I'm real happy to say that we offer a great continuity of care with our current employees being on our roster. They're able to provide a great care. They know our residents more than the agencies who used to work here back in the day. Little by little, things started to progress for us. We were able to build a team. That was the first point. When I first started, we had 1 nurse in play who was on our roster. We developed our nursing team. We developed caregivers. We wanted to let them know things were different in our building, come to work for us. It seemed like we didn't have to really go that hard because word started to get out that Arden Courts is turning the page, and they're going forward. They're really making some strides. So people are applying. They do want to work here, and I think that's based on our new culture and the new way we do business here. So one of the biggest stories we have came from a competing facility. I was called by a family to go do an assessment on their loved one who was in another community. There were behaviors involved in her stay at that community. The family just wasn't happy. So I ended up going over to the community this woman was at. I walked in. She was 5'0", laying in this large queen-size bed in these rooms that have high ceilings. And when I walked in, she just yelled out, "I just want to die." And that continued for several moments. So it really hit me hard. I continued to look at her, and I realized that not only she was filthy, but her bed was so soiled it had been dripping urine, if you would. And yeah, just a horrible sight to see. I ended up contacting the family, and even with her behaviors, we wanted to give her a shot. Brought back the information to my team. We thought she was on her way to dying at that point. I wouldn't have given her more than 2 or 3 weeks in her current state when I had seen her. We brought her to Arden Courts. She thrived. It was an unbelievable story. We brought her in, kept her clean. She had a series of UTIs at the former location that she was staying at. I think she had one in about 2.5 years with us. Complete turnaround. We had vendors who would come in, doctors who would come in, and they couldn't believe this story. And her name was Nancy. And they could not see the same person that they once saw with Nancy. So she was kind of our poster child to the point where she kind of created what we started here in the building when I first started to work here. Everybody knew Nancy in the community. Such a success story. She ended up passing away with us. We have a program that we allow our people to age in place. We're not a community where we kick people out because times get rough or difficult. We have services that we bring in that can help during those times. We have hospice who can come into our building. We have home health who can come into our building. And we want this to be their final resting spot before they go home. So from there, we had another great story of a gentleman. He was an Irish Catholic priest. And my director of nursing, Savannah, had been working the night shift one night. And she called me, it was about midnight on a weeknight, and she told me of this story where we had a gentleman who had been passing away. He was virtually taking his last breaths at the time, and his family was surrounding him during this difficult time, and they realized they did not have the last rites read to him. He too was Catholic. So Savannah tried reaching out to hospice clergy who could not come at that particular time. She realized that we had a former Irish Catholic priest in the building. He had been sleeping at that hour, and she went and she woke him up. She asked the question, "Can you perform the last rites on somebody?" And he immediately got up and he put his button-down shirt on. He wanted to look good, so he changed out of his pajamas to get his button-down on. He proceeded to grab his book in which he needed to remember the last rites. As he was walking over to assess the gentleman who was on his last breath, he realized he didn't have his collar on from his days of the priesthood, if you would. So Savannah stopped and made a collar just from regular computer paper and stuck it in his shirt. You know, just an unbelievable sequence of events. He walked in the room. He had this book that he needed because he was a person who didn't know what he had for breakfast every day. I couldn't remember that. And immediately, without the use of the book, he started to read. Excuse me, take a minute. But yeah, very touching. I got that phone call and I broke down. It's unbelievable, you know. But he ended up reading the last rites just from his memory and what was left of his mind. He was able to pull back in, and it was such a beautiful event, according to Savannah. So the family, they couldn't believe it. They so cherished that moment. And Savannah wanted to know if they wanted the hospice clergy to still show up the following morning if their loved one had made it that long. And they said no, they received everything they needed from our former residents. So great story along the way, and I'm so happy to be just a small part of that. So if you ever saw what I saw, even with this Nancy that I had referenced, you know, just unbelievable. They ended up closing down the facility where she was staying at because they just weren't providing good care. And the family till this day generally brings us in like cake or some type of a dessert every month because of the care we provided to Nancy. So I'm all over the place. I'm glad you have an edit over there.
Yeah, we'll edit a little bit.